Hello and welcome to another edition of the NBA Outlet presented by OTGBasketball.com. Be sure to follow OTG on Twitter at OTGBasketball. Also hit that subscribe button on iTunes. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, my good friend, Harris Wichard. What's up, Harris?
Happy holidays, Nick. I hope you had a great Christmas. And now tonight for our Jewish people, the fifth night of Hanukkah. And it was a entertaining day in the NBA on Christmas, to say the least. A lot of crazy things going on in the basketball world, and a lot of hate on my boy Curry. So we'll get started on what we saw on Christmas Day. Your biggest takeaways from Christmas Day, Nick.
I love this matchup between the Warriors and Cavs. Every matchup, every game you see between these two teams, it's starting to get a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more testy. I mean, you saw the energy early on, and you could see the kind of hate, as Shumpert would say, for each other during the game, late in the game. I mean, it was an awesome game to watch. Obviously, the Warriors blew that lead in that game. They could have had the possibility to win. What did you think about the well, actually, before I talk about the no call on KD, my boy RJ, Richard Jefferson, looking like he was on the Jersey Nets.
Sometimes I say, one or two things. Somebody remind him that it's 2016. I mean, it looked like 2004 for a minute, and the energy and obviously the couple of dunks and, in the hot tub time machine for RJ. And he, Jeff Van Gundy getting excited, telling him that you could scream and say whatever you want. You're 36 years old. I think from a standpoint of just momentum, you could see that that's where, before even LeBron checked back in, that's where the Cavs kind of took the game back over. And this is what's up?
It's kind of incredible that RJ has had such success with the Cavs. He's played a pretty big part in that team, especially last year in the finals, and then in the matchup now. I think he kind of fits. And he kind of understands what the Cavs are trying to do and what LeBron wants to do. And I think that's
he's always pointed to that. I think he's been inspired by LeBron, and LeBron's brought the best out in him. And, you need championship teams obviously need pieces like that. We didn't expect him to play at that level. But I thought his dunk when it was 94-82. And it just seemed like the Warriors have full control of this game, even only leading by 3 at half. And just down the stretch in the third quarter and into the fourth, it just looked like the Warriors have full control of this one and up 14 with 8 minutes or so left. And the Cavs might be in their head a little bit. And, the plays down the stretch. I mean, LeBron and the tech, you want to talk about that, whatever. I'm not upset about that at all.
I saw somebody say on Twitter today that they think that they didn't call the tech on LeBron because they shouldn't have called the tech on RJ for winking at KD.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm okay with it. I didn't really care they didn't tee up LeBron. I could see why a Warriors fan would be mad just because they tee people up for doing way less than that all the time. But I'm okay with it. There's a ton of energy. The atmosphere was crazy. He was super hyped. It's his hometown.
Yeah, Kyrie clutch again. And,
Kyrie.
Yeah, the tough shot that he made. But, I mean, this game meant a little bit more to Cleveland, I think. But, that could be tough to say also. I think – for me, it's, and looking at what the criticism of Steph was coming out of that game, and, he's not as effective. It's Durant's team. I think a lot of people like to look at one game and overreact a little bit, and what we saw in the finals. I think, if anything, it's going to continue to light a fire under Curry. He's a little bit frustrated right now. He's not playing up to his full potential. He hears everything. He sees everything. He's a smart guy. So, I think, if anything, after his MVP performances and that magic that we saw for the last couple of seasons, that is not really in his game right now. And I think he's adjusting. I mean, don't get me wrong, the sky's not falling. They're 27-5 and have dominated most of the league. This was that one matchup that we expect to see again in June. But I don't think for him the sky's falling. I know he's not shot as well and has adjusted to playing alongside another superstar. And, this Cleveland team is one that presents some tough matchups for them. But, I still think that, they come out of this game feeling good about themselves. I mean, they're upset they blew the fourth quarter lead, but I don't think there's going to be any kind of hangover effect tonight versus Toronto.
Well, I think the thing with Curry is that people didn't realize how incredible his last two seasons were. He was super hot. He was hitting a ton of shots at a high percentage. Obviously, it's going to be impossible to do that your whole career. So I think, he came down maybe a little bit, but there's still he's kind of cold right now. So he can easily get hot later in the season or down the stretch or maybe in the playoffs when it matters most. So I'm not worried about him. I think, obviously there's some things he needs to clean up, and playing with KD is going to make a difference, and it's going to impact all their games. So
Nick,
I
I
mean, I
think
think,
sometimes it's the mentality of what you have to do. I think last
yeah,
night he did what he
exactly.
had to do. And I know the difficulty, shot difficulty, and all that stuff, and he can't keep this up. And I think people want to nitpick when there's a certain level of hype around a player. I mean, I think he deserved all of that hype, and I think he was just getting the most out of his body and his ability. But and a team guy too, and there's something to be said for that, a team first guy at that level. But I think going forward for him, he just understands what he has to accomplish on this team. I mean, the shooting numbers can be hard to explain, but I think for him personally, I think he understands that his role is lesser. He doesn't have to do as much. And I told you what I think his mentality could turn into is that, can I be a high assist man?
Yeah.
And can I facilitate this offense? And, it just seems to be a little bit off right now. I think there's just still some things to figure out. I think they'll hit their stride when they need to.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely an adjustment, and you're bringing a player like Kevin Durant. Not many teams do that ever. So obviously, it's going to have
that
an impact.
173.
Exactly. I mean, talking about Kevin Durant, did you think that was a foul by Richard Jefferson at the end of the game, or you think it's a good no call?
It could have been called, and would they have had free throws or side out again? They have a foul again?
I'm not sure, to be quite honest. I mean, I would think they probably would have got free throws, maybe. Yeah. Just thinking there probably was a foul, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I think it could go either way. It was a 50-50. I mean, Durant, had mentioned in the post game how, we're not going to blame officials. We're going to be professionals about this. And, it's a game that Golden State desperately wanted. I mean, my cousin asked me at Christmas, he's like, this is Curry time, though. And I think, also pointing to Durant getting the last look, I don't say change of the guard. Whose team it is, whose team it isn't, but they called Durant's number, and I think all that's kind of like confidence too, and team morale. Like, they probably discussed
trying to help Durant fit in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in the huddle there was a discussion that went on that probably had something to go with KD get us this win, and Curry's done it how many times for them. So I think and he had probably a better matchup, and Jefferson trying to chase around Durant and stuff. So it could have been called. I mean, he may have tripped him. It wasn't a Grayson Allen type trip, but
that's terrible. That's terrible.
Yeah, and they suspended him finally. But it was a physical game down the stretch. It's what every NBA fan wanted on Christmas. We saw some other blowouts. So the Knicks struggled versus the Celtics. So for me personally, I would have liked to see it called, but I have a little bit of a bias in that regard, and it's not something I was up in arms over.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it not getting called just because I hate games getting decided at the end by the fouls. But and like you said, one play doesn't really determine the game. The Warriors had plenty of other opportunities, to win that game and make plays down the stretch, and they didn't. So, I mean, you could be mad at the refs, but at the end of the day, they didn't win.
Yeah, and talk about another guy that's had to do everything for his team is Russell Westbrook, man, and another triple-double last night against the Heat. And we texted about this as I was watching this game, and the thing that stuck out to me is his composure and his vision. It's almost like the game has slowed down for him a little bit, and that's what everybody's been calling for him is like, oh, we know he runs 1,000,000 miles an hour. Something I've always said is the only guy that's ever, in my opinion, in the history of the league that's been hard to guard at one speed has been Westbrook. The toughest guys have multiple gears, right? They can
stop and go and, slow down.
Their hesitation, just everything about them is deceptive, and that's what makes like guys like Nash and guys that don't have the gifts that Westbrook has. Now you add the gift, the physical gift, to now what Westbrook has in his game as he is maturing, which seems to be vision, composure, leadership. He's the whole package right now, and he's overwhelming teams on a nightly basis.
Yeah, I mean, he knows what he has to do, and there's no problem. There's nobody else trying to take the ball from him, and it's all about him and him running the understanding of when to pass the ball now. Obviously, there's still some shots that he's taking that aren't very good, but he does hit a lot of difficult shots too, so he kind of earns them. And, I mean, there was one play last night where he grabbed the rebound. He was behind the whole everybody on the court, the other 9 guys who were already down there. Westbrook gets the ball. He beats them almost all to the rim and gets off a crazy layup. And it's just like, how do you guard this guy?
Yeah, not much. And he's on the pace right now to – well, not pace. That's the wrong way to say it. But what Paul was doing with Chandler and what, great guards do to their bigs and extend careers, and what Nash did and what Stockton did. And, not comparing him to those great passers, but he's starting to make Steve Adams a lot better.
Yeah, Steven Adams him and Adams and Westbrook are developing a great relationship.
Yeah.
It also helps that Adam has that kind of ruthlessness, and he's aggressive out there. He's not scared of anybody, and Westbrook's the same way. And they always have each other's back too, which is nice.
As Clyde would call it, Walt Clyde Frazier, ESP. And, that chemistry that you see between guards and bigs, sometimes it's undescribable. Some guys have it, some guys don't. It's nice to see that. Westbrook has obviously the respect of his teammates because of his work ethic, but his mindset seems to be a lot better right now with, the clear-cut alpha dog and leader of this ball club.
Yeah, and I think I've heard this on Twitter a good amount, and I probably agree with that as well. Billy Donovan's done a pretty good job too. Yeah. Losing a player like Durant, Oladipo's been out. He's working with some of these young guys they've got from different teams. So it's working out for the Thunder, and I think they're starting to find a nice rhythm. I think
4 in a row now.
Yeah, 4 in a row. I think they're currently 5th in the West.
Yep.
They could maybe jump. I mean, not for the season. Depending on the injuries for the Clippers, could they jump them?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we don't know the extent of Paul's injury and how long he'll be out, but we know that Griffin could be out for a while. And we discussed this on the last show, what the Clippers' issues are going to be. But the Rockets continue to look good. I looked, I watched some of this game, the Rockets and the Mavericks last night. I know Dallas hasn't exactly been a world beater this year, but I see like strong camaraderie with this Houston group. And obviously last night they were complaining about.
I heard there was a lot of issues in that game.
Yeah, and then someone said something about Ariza's kids and his wife.
And Ariza waited outside the locker room for Jerry. And
Mellow Garnett style last night.
Yeah, and I think Harden even went with Ariza.
Yeah, I think there's always like this trash talk like line in the NBA.
Yeah,
guys understand it. Like, here's the line. Say what you want. Don't cross this line. Like certain guys like Garnett and Terry and the notable trash talkers in the league cross the line. But I think last night the Rockets got a little bit upset about some of the things that the Mavericks were saying.
Yeah, and I think they also were mad at the Mavericks coaching staff, Rick Carlisle. Beverly was outside his press conference, like saying something. So, I mean, the Rockets, I think, swept the season series with them last night. So obviously they're pissed off. They're doing terrible. They expect to maybe at least compete for an 8 seed.
Yeah,
they've had a lot of injuries. Dirk's been banged up. So, I mean, that's not the route to go.
Yeah,
but whatever. I mean, the Rockets, like you said, it seems like they have good team chemistry. They've been together for a little bit of time now, like Harden, Ariza, Beverly. Eric Gordon's come in and fit well.
Haven't the Rockets been known to get under people's skins too, though?
Yeah, they have, especially Patrick Beverly.
Respect around the league too. So
yeah,
I don't know who's to blame. It was just a heated Texas rival last night. This game was over in like the middle of the second quarter, but it's just one of those situations where he said, she said. Or in this case, Beverly said, Reza said, but
yeah, I mean, division rivals. It's nice to see some hate.
Oh yeah, I mean, 9-23 versus 24-9. I think we're, who's more frustrated, like you said. Like I talked to you about yesterday. It's also nice to see, the Dallas will now test some of these young guys. I mean, now they have Jackson who got called up from the D League. Seth Curry will get extra minutes.
Dwight Powell
is another one of those guys that'll get extra minutes. Yep. So
I mean, they have some young guys too. And the Rockets, on the other hand, they're looking at that 3rd seed now, and that's looking like a strong possibility too, with the Clippers being banged up. Just got to keep rolling and getting those wins. I think they're 8-2 in their last 10, so not bad for the Rockets at all. Talking about the Mavericks, let's talk about another team that's kind of been disappointing. This is a team that you and I, and a lot of people around the NBA thought was going to have a successful season. Indiana Pacers. They're 15-17. The pieces haven't really fit. Paul George does not seem to be happy. So what's going on in Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Nate McMillan has done, average to mediocre job. I mean, they got fined. Both him and George got fined $25K for, criticizing the officials the other night against, with the Bulls loss. But George has missed 7 games too. That affects them a little bit, obviously. But, guys like Monta Ellis haven't necessarily played well. He's been a disappointment. CJ Miles, guys like that. They're relying on some young players too, and the Teague thing has taken a little bit longer, I think, than they expected to kind of mesh and play well with his teammates.
Yeah, I mean, he had a nice stretch, but I think the issue, Paul George looks really frustrated. Do you think it's becoming a possibility they could trade him, or there's no way?
Well, what's his contract? Do you know his contract?
His contract, I think, is up in 2 years.
2 years, and then does he have the no trade?
Yeah, I think everybody. I think he doesn't have no trade. Only a few players in the league have it. He's not one of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, he hasn't really been the Paul George that we saw last year. I mean, we know about the leg injury and stuff. So that was something that, a lot of guys questioned, would he come back from this? And he did. And he came back last year to a guy that maybe he might have even been better than.
Yeah, last year I thought he was probably maybe his best season. He started off really hot. Offensively, he looked great. He was rebounding, passing the ball, playing great defense. So, I mean, last year was probably one of his best seasons. This year, he hasn't looked quite the same. The rhythm's not there. Obviously, playing with new pieces isn't helping. Do you think a change of scenery would change that, or he's just having a rough year?
Well, he was on a group that I think it's also tough to play on a group that was in back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals and now is in, I want to say rebuild, but they had to blow that whole thing up.
A retool, I would call it.
A retool, yeah. And Vogel now in Orlando, and because they had a good thing going. They were a good defensive team. He was an up-and-coming player in the league. He went from 7 points a game to 12 points a game to 17 to 21. So he was an up-and-coming star. Then the leg injury, and then a retool, like you said, a rebuild, retool type of situation. So this team went from perennial championship contenders, even though they had to get through LeBron, to an average 500 ball club and having to move a lot of pieces. So a lot of moving pieces. I don't compare it to the Melo stint in New York because Melo never got to that level consistently, and this is the team that Melo couldn't get through in 13. But the comparisons are there as far as a lot of moving parts, a lot of personnel changes, now a coaching change. So that's not easy to adjust to we call him a superstar. We call him, obviously an all-star, but I don't know if he's at that level, the superstar level. But
I think last year he looked like a superstar, and this year we thought he was going to continue that. He's probably right on the brink. I mean, I at the end of the day, I'd probably still call him a superstar just because I know what he can do. But I mean, it's just a weird situation. I kind of want him to trade him. I'm just like one of those people that wants all the superstars or big-time players to get traded if they're on a bad team and it's not working out. I don't think it's not necessarily a bad team, but it's not gelling. I mean, obviously, there's a month or two to the trade deadline, so they'll see how things work out. But
he's 26 years old.
Yeah,
he's been in the league for 7 years. I mean, this is his prime right now. He's got it. He's one of those. I don't know if that leg injury will take some time off his prime, but he's still. I think Indiana still has some time to figure it out and doesn't want to waste a talent like this and go through some mediocre years in the prime of his career.
Yeah, that's very true. Having a player like that's hard to come by, especially with the new CBA. But talking about the new CBA, we're going to look back at 2016. Mm-hmm. And what's your favorite NBA moment from 2016?
I'm going to have to probably go with the last night of the regular season in 2016, the flipping back between seeing the Warriors trying to chase down history and get that 73rd win, and obviously Kobe Bryant's 60-point night. And I know he took a ton of shots in that game, but for me, watching all of the actors and musicians and from every walk of life just send out a legend on that note. And I know there was a lot of history in the postseason as well, and then we even have seen some historic moments and cool moments in this season, the start of this season. But I think seeing a legacy like that, almost reminiscent of Derek Jeter's send-off in baseball, just for the amount of time and work that he's put into that franchise, that was probably my favorite night moment.
It was crazy. It was crazy. I did not expect that. Obviously, we know what Kobe's gone through the last few seasons.
Right.
And for him to come out, in his final game and a performance like that, it was awesome, And it makes you remember him the right way. You don't think about the injuries quite as much. You think about that game that he had, that 60-plus point game. And it's a great moment. And like you said, the Warriors winning 73 games, that's definitely something we might never see again. So
I think it's also history. Cool that, when you remember Kobe Bryant and you remember like Derek Jeter, like the vintage Derek Jeter, and not to make this about baseball, is the inside out swing, winning a ball game, the clutchness. The first word that probably comes to mind when you think of him is clutch. And then in Kobe's regard, it's willpower. It's a mindset. It's that
Mamba
mentality of just being able to overcome and the strength and will. Like obviously, like when Bill Simmons complained about this with we didn't want to see Jordan with the Wizards. That's not the lasting image that I want to see with Michael. So it's kind of cool that something we really remember him for is something we saw on the very last night of his career.
Yeah, for me, I think my favorite moment, the moment I'll probably never forget, other than those two, I'll definitely remember them as well.
Yeah.
But LeBron's block on Andre Iguodala in the finals. That's I mean, we might not. It might have changed the whole entire offseason.
It changed
we don't even know what happened.
Yeah.
LeBron, that is not a play many players can make. When I think LeBron now, that just pops in my head.
Yeah, and he's been known for that play his whole career.
Exactly.
A trademark block in the finals. Also, we saw one of the more clutch offensive plays, in the last how often have you been able to say in a finals, in a game 7 for that matter, that this is a game-winning shot? So Kyrie's shot a three-pointer.
That dynamic duo in the finals is memorable. Kyrie and LeBron putting the team on their back.
Mm-hmm.
Those huge performances they had, and it just even no offense, Harris, I know it kind of hurts a little bit.
No,
the 3-1 lead, the Warriors blowing that lead. I remember saying to myself, if somebody's gonna do it in the finals, it's gonna be LeBron. Yeah. People asked me. I remember, being at the gym, people kept asking me, "Oh, are the Cavs done?" I was like, "Calm down a little."
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm like one of those people that never writes anything off quite yet.
Yeah.
I've seen way too much crazy shit to ever be like, no chance. There's always a chance.
Well, we've seen so many 3-1 series leads blown now, and
now it's
last year. It started last year with the Clippers and Rockets, and now we saw that twice in a row. It's pretty remarkable that the way that postseason kind of unfolded and led us into the offseason. And another moment of 2016 that no NBA fan will forget was where were you when you found out Durant was going to join the Warriors?
Yeah, I remember seeing the notification. I was like, what? Similar to that, people kept asking me. I was like, I thought Durant probably was going to stay in OKC. It just made sense.
I joked about it. I was joking that, imagine I was starting to tell people prematurely, I have a feeling about this. And, I obviously everyone in New York here was hoping that there was a, fighter's chance that he'd come here. And I thought there might have been more of a chance in New York than Golden State. But the amazing –
I thought Boston had a good chance. For some reason, I just felt like they were going to be able to convince him. I don't know why. Or maybe even the Spurs as a possibility. I just, I really didn't think the Warriors maybe in my top 5 locations, but it still kind of bugs me a little. But
well, as we close the book on 2016, which was a very a moment filled, exciting season or year for that matter in basketball. Don't forget about the dunk contest too, which was pretty cool.
Aaron Gordon, Zach LaVine putting on a show.
Yeah. So, are there anything you're really hoping for? I know we did the wish list. As we turn the page on 2016 and look forward to 2017, is there anything if you had to say, I would love to see this happen? Or obviously, I think we all anticipate round 3 of Warriors Cavs.
That's all I want. I don't care about anything else really. Just give me that in the finals. Give me a solid playoffs with some nice, exciting games, some game winners. I'll be pretty happy. Obviously, there's some dumb rules here and there, but for the most part, I enjoy the NBA a lot. So
I think there's a sense of there's a sleepwalking through the regular season. I know guys are getting these paychecks and people are coming out, but I don't know if there's ever been a time, because I haven't witnessed it, because I guess this is what it was like for the Celtics and Lakers in the 80s, where everyone was like, we got to see Bird Magic, and that was we got to see that matchup again. And we haven't seen anything like this or anything close to this since we've been basketball fans.
Yeah, this
really
this type
anticipate a final like this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you want to see what happens. It's
imagine just seeing just think about this for a second. I'm going to throw another Spurs Raptors. These guys are going to sit at home and watch the Spurs and Raptors.
The numbers would be so down.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both great teams. Don't get me wrong, but just the average NBA fan is not going to enjoy them as much. Obviously, fans like us are still going to enjoy the game, but the matchup, Kyrie versus Steph, LeBron versus KD.
Yeah.
Kevin Love and Draymond, JR and Klay Thompson. It's just
you're potentially talking about maybe one of the most watched finals of the last in
For
a
sure.
technology-driven world right now. You could watch games on Twitter. I was on the way home on Thursday night from the city. I told you I went to the city on Thursday, and I watched the fourth quarter of the Giants on Twitter.
Yeah, that's a very cool thing Twitter's
Yeah.
been doing. I mean, talking about streaming, I streamed the Christmas Day game on my girlfriend's laptop. So
Yeah.
it's just technology's great. I'll probably be like streaming the NBA Finals on like my TV, laptop, and phone. Get every angle. Like,
got to get every angle, man. You got to get every angle. But yeah, it's just amazing, where technology is going, and the amount of money that's in the league. That's why I think I can't see it being anything else besides, and not to like start my conspiracy theories and whatnot, because that's not what we're here for. But I just can't see the league wanting anything else. I mean, they were in heaven. Like, obviously, we know Christmas Day is like Thanksgiving for football. That's the day of the NBA. There were 5 games, and for that game to go right down to the wire in dramatic fashion was all the NBA could ask for. That's what the NBA wanted on Christmas.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, you can't beat it, and we'll look forward to their next matchup, even the regular season.
Definitely. Definitely, man. And now, again, happy holidays, happy New Year to everybody. Stay safe and continue enjoying these games.
Yeah, happy holidays, happy New Year. Stay safe, everyone. Enjoy this time. Enjoy NBA basketball, and we'll talk to you next year.